Have you ever felt like you're living a script you didn't write? You wake up, go to work, try to live right, but deep inside, there's always this nameless emptiness. You've meditated. You've studied the law of attraction. You've manifested everything they said, and yet something still doesn't click. Not wrong, just not real. Maybe you don't need to learn anything new. You need to remember what you've always known, but forgot. Long ago, there was a blueprint for the soul. They called it Hermeticism, a map not for the mind, but for activation from within. And when you begin to remember, you stop being programmed by reality. You become the one rewriting it. You're living inside a simulation. Not the kind with wires, microchips, or VR goggles, but a mental simulation where everything around you is being programmed by beliefs you don't even remember choosing. You call it life. But in truth, it's a script written by society, education, family, and collective fear. You were taught how to live like a normal person. You accepted the rules without ever being asked if you agreed. Then your spiritual journey began. You searched for truth, awakening, experience, and embodiment. You learned how to manifest. You raised your vibration. You followed the steps. But eventually, something still didn't feel right. You paused and realized you were still stuck. Still not creating the reality you knew was possible. Still felt like life was reflecting something misaligned. But this isn't your fault. It's not because you're not positive enough or didn't meditate long enough. It's because you're trying to manifest from a mind that's been pre-programmed. Hermeticism calls this mentalism. All is mind. The all is mind. The world isn't happening to you. It's being generated by the frequency you emit, moment by moment. You're not seeing the truth. You're seeing a version of reality filtered through your beliefs, fears, and emotional wounds. If you believe you're not enough, life will reflect proof of your lack. If you believe the world is dangerous, every corner will echo with threats. If you believe you must earn love, you'll exhaust yourself trying to prove you deserve it. Manifestation isn't broken. The law of attraction isn't false. But they won't function properly if the foundation beneath them is still running outdated beliefs. The external world hasn't betrayed you. It's simply mirroring the exact frequency you carry inside. As within, so without. It's not just a poetic line. It's a warning, a reminder, a key, and the most important thing is this. You don't need to destroy this reality. You simply need to rewrite the code within your mind. That's why the ancients didn't try to change the world. They transformed themselves because they understood that the world is a mirror, and it never lies. So start here with one simple question. What belief is running the simulation I'm living in right now? If you've ever felt like some deep part of you knows a truth no one ever taught, you may be remembering something that was hidden from you. Since ancient times, people understood. Reality isn't chaos. It runs on a system, an invisible blueprint, a structure that governs everything: thoughts, emotions, planets, time cycles, reincarnation, karma. The Egyptians called it the sacred order. The Greeks named it Logos. In the East, it was the Tao. But the Hermetics, they passed it on through 7 principles recorded by Hermes Trismegistus. Hermes wasn't just a person, he was the embodiment of supreme wisdom. His title, Thrice Great, wasn't about power, but about mastery over all 3 realms: matter, mind, and spirit. And the blueprint he left behind? It became the hidden code of alchemists, sages, philosophers, and ancient scientists used to understand, transform, and co-create reality itself. But what happened? Why has most of humanity never heard of Hermeticism? Because the moment humanity realized it could shape reality was also the moment power systems began suppressing that primal truth. From the medieval church burning heretical texts, to religious institutions replacing spiritual freedom with fear-based doctrine, to modern governments and corporations standardizing education to control knowledge flow. Every one of them severed you from a truth that you could live without dependence. This blueprint, Hermeticism, never vanished. It was encoded in symbols, hidden in ancient texts, sacred geometry, and rituals. Only those with a matching frequency could perceive it. And now, as humanity's vibration begins to shift, that blueprint is reactivating within those who once knew it. You may not understand every line of the Kybalion, but you'll feel its truth resonating in your bones, as if your soul once read it. In another lifetime, you don't learn Hermeticism, you remember it. It wasn't hidden because it's mystical. It was hidden because once you understand how reality works, no one can control you anymore. And this is what every system fears the most. A human being who is free, fearless, and no longer dependent. Imagine living inside a dream and then suddenly waking up, not in a bed, but inside the mind of the universe itself. Everything you see, people, situations, circumstances, is not happening to you. It's being projected onto the screen of your life by the belief code running inside you. The all is mind. This isn't just a quote to memorize. It's a doorway to re-examine everything you call reality. Mentalism is the foundational principle of Hermeticism. It teaches that the universe isn't built from matter. It's built from thought, awareness, perception. You are not a passive responder to life. You are the transmitter. Whatever frequency you broadcast, life reflects exactly that to you. If you believe you're unworthy, you'll find evidence of lack everywhere. If you believe life is threatening, people will seem distant, suspicious, and guarded. If you believe you're awakened, but still rooted in fear, even your spiritual practices will become just another mask for the same old mind. Picture this. You're standing in a dark room. Objects appear, not because they're there, but because your thoughts call them into form. You don't realize it, but you're the one designing the scene. You could study hundreds of techniques to raise your vibration. But if your core belief is still, I'm not enough, everything you build will rest on shaky ground. So pause. Ask yourself, whose life am I living? Are these beliefs truly mine, or inherited from religion, media, or childhood wounds? Mentalism isn't about forcing reality with thought. It's a reminder. Reality is a mirror, not a punishment. Change what you see inside, and the entire world will shift in response. There's a secret hiding in plain sight, yet almost no one notices it. Everything in your life, from the people you meet, from the emotions you feel to the challenges you face, is an exact reflection of what's happening inside you. Not punishment, not karmic revenge, but a neutral mirror. No more, no less. As above, so below. As within, so without. This isn't some mystical catchphrase. It's a formula, as precise as a law of physics. You cannot attract deep, safe love if your heart is still locked in guilt, self-rejection, or fear of loss. You cannot enter a reality of freedom if your inner world is filled with resentment, judgment, or the feeling of being trapped. Your consciousness is the author of the script. Reality It's just the illustrated backdrop. The more you demand the world to change, the more rigid it becomes. Because you're looking in the wrong direction. Instead of outward, you need to look inward. Imagine standing before a giant mirror, but instead of adjusting your face, you try to bend the glass. The harder you try, the more distorted the reflection, until you're exhausted, not realizing the mirror isn't wrong, it's just honest. Your world is the same. The person you blame may be reflecting the part of yourself you haven't faced. The situation you think is punishment may be echoing an old belief you've yet to clear. The event you labeled random could be the universe responding to a subtle wish you whispered last year. If life feels barren, don't search for flowers. Dig for water in the soil of your being. The question is no longer, why is this happening to me? But, what is this reflecting in me? Because if you want the world to change, the first thing that must shift is the relationship between you and yourself. Nothing is ever still. Even when you think you're motionless, you're vibrating. A cell in your body, a thought not yet formed, a fleeting emotion, a memory you believed was long forgotten. This universe isn't made of fixed matter. It's woven from frequency, like a symphony that never stops playing. You are a note in that orchestra, and the note you emit determines the melody reality plays back to you. Nothing rests. Everything vibrates. Every word you speak is a ripple of energy. Every thought you repeat is a current of frequency. You're broadcasting, even in silence. Some people walk into a room and the space feels heavy. Others say nothing, yet their presence calms everything. It's not because they're better, it's because they're tuned to a different frequency field. You want reality to feel lighter, but your vibration hums with doubt. You long for deep love, but your heart still pulses with fear of abandonment. You seek financial freedom, but your energetic wiring still echoes childhood scarcity. Vibration is not toxic positivity. It's the layer beneath all words, actions, and efforts. The universe doesn't respond to your prayers. It responds to your resonance. That's why you can say, I'm fine. But if your frequency is emitting struggle, the universe will keep sending experiences to mirror that inner conflict. You can't think positively to trick the law of vibration. You can only be honest about the frequency you're carrying, and then transmute it through awareness, not force. So when you want to change your reality, don't ask, how do I get there? Ask instead, what frequency must I vibrate at for that reality to arrive naturally? And when you vibrate in alignment, the world begins to harmonize with you. No pushing, no proving, just resonance. You were taught that light and darkness are enemies, that love and hate are opposites, that joy and sorrow cannot coexist. But here's what you were never taught. Everything exists on a gradient. Life doesn't move in a straight line. It doesn't climb endlessly upward, nor does it spiral forever downward. It breathes, it pulses, it flows in cycles. And you, whether you realize it or not, are riding the tides of that universal rhythm. Everything flows. Everything has its tides. Some days you feel lit up with inspiration. The next, you feel hollow for no clear reason. It's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's because energy moves in patterns, like oceans, like seasons, like the breath of the cosmos. Pain comes, then it passes. Joy arrives, then fades. You can't hold on to the peak forever, nor are you stuck in the valley for good. But here's the danger. You were taught that only progress means success. that low moods mean failure, that stillness equals weakness. And so, you start resisting the rhythm. You tense up every time your energy dips. You force yourself to climb, instead of waiting for the wave to rise and carry you. Rhythm teaches something profoundly wise. You must learn to retreat at the right time, to launch further. You must rest, to gather the quantum force for your next leap. Picture someone jumping rope. They don't jump continuously. They wait for the perfect beat, then spring upward, mistime the rhythm and the trip. Life is just like that. Learn to feel the rhythm, not to control it, but to flow with it, like a conscious dancer. And when you align yourself with the rhythm of the universe, you'll realize nothing is ever really moving backward. You're simply catching the wind for the next sail. You may have thought that what happens to you is fate or karma, or just bad luck. But the truth might be simpler and far more profound. Nothing is random. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Every experience in your life, whether it's a glance, a chance meeting, or a deep loss, is the echo of a cause you once set in motion. Not punishment, not revenge, not blind karma, but a precise energetic ecosystem where every vibration leaves a trace and returns right on time when your soul is ready to see it. There's no need to fear this, because it also means if you change the cause, you change the effect. If you shift within, the outside must shift with it. Someone who plants truth will receive trust. Someone who sows control will meet resistance. Someone who radiates lack will feel empty, no matter how much they acquire. And the opposite is just as true. Those who plant kindness, love, and wisdom, even if they move slowly, are grounded like the earth itself. You are inside a neutral feedback system, not biased, not rewarding or punishing. It simply reflects what you've activated through your thoughts, emotions, words, and choices. So instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" try asking, "What unconscious cause might I have set in motion? And what new cause am I being invited to create right now?" Life isn't random. It's a song replaying the melody you once composed. You're not a victim. You're the composer. And you can begin writing a new tune right now with a single conscious thought, a single loving act, or a single decision made with deeper awareness. You are not your gender. You are a living current of two creative forces, giving and receiving, doing and feeling, will and intuition. Gender is in everything. This doesn't refer to biological sex. It refers to the two creative principles found in every form of life, every system, every soul. A seed only sprouts when the masculine impulse, yang, meets the receptive soil, yin. An action becomes real when a clear intention, masculine, is nurtured within a space of openness and receptivity, feminine. You may have a masculine body, yet carry healthy feminine energy. You may be a strong woman and act from awakened masculine clarity. When these energies are out of sync, life feels chaotic. When they are in harmony, you feel whole. Some people act constantly, trying to control everything, yet can't receive love or rest. Others are deeply inspired and sensitive, but can't manifest anything because they lack grounded action. You don't need to become a certain gender. You need to recognize which energy is missing or wounded within you. Creation doesn't come from one side alone. It is born from the sacred union of the masculine and feminine, in balance, love, and understanding. If you're exhausted from over-controlling, it may be time to invite your intuition back in. If you're endlessly waiting for the right inspiration. Perhaps it's time to rise with intention and act. Wholeness is the gateway to your inner light. You don't need to learn how to be someone else. You simply need to allow your true self to become complete, where both light and shadow are loved, where both logic and emotion are heard. And when you walk from that place of balance, each step you take will touch the earth without losing its connection to the sky. You've read the books, you've listened to the podcasts, you've meditated, done shadow work, practiced the law of attraction, worked on limiting beliefs. You've even had those elevated moments, as if you touched a hidden truth deep within your soul. But then, life pulls you back into familiar feelings, stuckness, repetition, and sometimes a hollowness even deeper than before you began. Why? Because awakening doesn't happen once. It's not a single event. It's a cycle, a process. And unless you recognize the subtle traps on this path, you can end up stuck inside your enlightenment journey. There's a deceptively sweet trap called "I've figured it out." When you understand a principle, you believe you've mastered it. But understanding has never been the end game. Not because you're foolish, but because understanding belongs to the mind, while transformation belongs to your living energy. You may know about polarity, yet still be overwhelmed by your emotions. You may understand cause and effect, and still shame yourself when things fall apart. You may know you are not the mind, and still run from your inner emptiness. You're not stuck because you lack knowledge. You're stuck because you haven't fully dissolved what you once believed to be you. Ego doesn't fall away by reading another book. It falls away when you stand inside the darkness of yourself and stop trying to fix it, but allow yourself to melt. That's why many who awaken fall into an even more subtle loop. Fake positivity, forced high vibes, denial of uncomfortable feelings, speaking spiritual truths, while secretly feeling torn apart inside. This is called spiritual bypassing, a sophisticated defense mechanism where spirituality becomes anesthesia instead of the raw portal to true healing. If this is where you are, don't blame yourself. You haven't failed. You're just standing at the threshold of a deeper layer of awakening, a place where you no longer need to prove you're awake. But dare to admit, I'm still learning. Parts of me are still forgotten, and I permit myself to keep going, not as one who knows, but as one who's willing to stay open. And it is in that moment, when you drop all titles of enlightened, that you finally begin to live the truth of your soul's path. You're not learning something new. You're remembering something that once belonged to you. You once knew that everything has rhythm. You once knew that all life is deeply connected. You once looked at the world through belonging eyes, without judgment, without fear, without control, and then something happened. A string of conditioning, a lifetime, an ancestral wound, a truth distorted by dogma. And so you began to forget. You forgot you had the right to feel. You forgot you once trusted the unseen. You forgot that you used to know exactly who you were. And then the journey began, the search. You thought you were moving forward, but you were circling back to reclaim what had been left behind. Awakening isn't about adding knowledge. It's about peeling away the dust that has dimmed your original light. How many times have you felt chills from a message, a line in a book, a stranger's gaze, a strange and vivid dream? That wasn't just passing emotion. It was the call of soul memory. A part of you whispered, "I've known this before." But the mind replied, "That's impossible. This is the first time I've heard it. So you stayed silent. You didn't trust the feeling. You couldn't admit that some things don't need to be learned, only remembered. But pause now. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, if I no longer believed everything had to be proven, what would I start to remember? You don't need to recall your past lives by name. That's not the point. What matters is remembering the frequency of your original essence. You are not what you've collected. You are what remains whole after everything else has been stripped away. And when you return to that, you no longer need to chase. You no longer need to become. You simply open to the remembrance rising within you, because your soul has never truly been forgotten. It's only been waiting for you to become quiet enough to hear its voice again. There is a quiet fear that's followed you since the very beginning of your journey. Not the fear of death, not the fear of being wrong, but the fear of disappearing, the fear of losing what you've always called me. You've done the shadow work. You've explored your subconscious. You've studied the laws of the universe. But there's one place you've hesitated to enter. The place where you must let go of every label, every identity, even your spiritual achievements. Because true awakening doesn't make you a more evolved version of your ego. It dissolves every image you once clung to. You're no longer the knower, no longer the healer, no longer the one who overcame. What remains is nameless, formless, limitless. And that's when the fear awakens. It whispers, if I let go of everything, who will I be? If I no longer have a story, do I even exist? But here's the truth. Only the ego is afraid. Your soul has never feared this, because the soul needs no identity. It doesn't cling to titles or stories. It doesn't need to know who it is. It only longs to flow freely, untouched by the ego's grasp. Ego death doesn't come by force. It arrives when you're simply tired of performing, when you no longer care to awaken the right way, when you're finally brave enough to not know anymore. You're not losing yourself. You're shedding the outdated layers. And for the first time, you breathe inside the very emptiness you once feared. Silence. No one is calling your name. No roles to carry. Nothing to do to be worthy. Just you. Unmasked. Undefended. Unburdened. Strangely enough, it's in that moment you begin to remember the original light you've always been. Not as a theory, but as a living sensation in every cell. I am, and that is enough. Once the ego dissolves, the old noise fades away. No more anxious questions like, am I doing this right? What will people think? Am I enough yet? A space opens, and if you're quiet enough, you'll start to hear something else. Not loud, not dramatic, just a whisper, so gentle, yet unmistakably clear. Intuition. Not fleeting gut feelings, not impulsive emotional swings, but a form of knowing that needs no logic, only recognition. It might arrive as a flash of insight, a thought in the middle of the night, a strange sense you can't explain, a pull to turn a different way, even when logic says, keep going. You don't learn intuition from books. You don't analyze your way to intuitive clarity. You simply become silent, long enough for it to step forward. Because it's been there all along, just buried beneath fear, conditioning, and social expectations. When intuition speaks, it doesn't argue with the mind. It doesn't push. It just is, a steady wave of inner certainty. And if you're brave enough to follow it, you'll walk into timelines your logical mind would never dare to map out. It may feel scary at first, because there's no proof. no clear explanation to give others. But the results will end your doubts. You'll find yourself in the right place, at the right time, meeting the right people, in ways no strategic plan could have predicted. Because intuition isn't about reason, it's about resonance with the deeper rhythm of the universe. When you act from intuition, you no longer live to please others. You no longer get lost in the maze of overthinking. You simply become clear and allow life to reveal the next step. How many times have you felt like you had to do something? Had to find the plan? Had to control the outcome? Had to stay in a high vibration? You had to keep your life on track, and so you stretched yourself thin like a violin string pulled too tight, always thinking, always calculating, always carrying the pressure of the belief, if I don't control everything, I'll lose it all. But have you noticed? The truth is, you've never truly been in control. Your heart beats without reminders. Your breath flows in and out without effort. The sun rises, the universe turns. All of it is moving in perfect harmony, with no one behind the wheel. So why believe you must control everything to feel safe? When you begin to trust the intelligence of the flow, something miraculous happens. You let go, and everything begins to move more smoothly than ever. Surrender is not defeat. It's the release of resistance to what already is. You stop fighting the current. You begin to ride it. You stop forcing life to happen. You start listening to know when to act and when to rest. You stop trying to manifest what you think is best and start receiving what might be far better than anything you had in mind. You don't need the entire map. You only need the next step and the faith that the following steps will appear as you move forward. And in that space, you no longer feel alone. You no longer carry the weight of doing it all yourself, because now you are in rhythm with something much larger, a quiet, cosmic intelligence that becomes your co-creator, and each moment begins to whisper gently, just trust, just move, just breathe. Everything is unfolding exactly as it needs to.